Good afternoon, Dave. How you doing? It's afternoon here, but you're in New York, right? Is that the case?
I'm in DC right now in
Oh,
rehearsal
right,
for a different play.
okay. What's the time out there now then? Just so I'm clear.
It's 11:37 a.m. I think we're
Okay,
four
cool. So it's
hours
still morning for you. I hope your morning's been treating you well.
behind.
We're here to discuss Tambo and Bones, right? A play that's coming to East London next month, but one that's experienced a bit of life in New York off Broadway. And you are the playwright, sir. Tell us a little bit about it. What can we expect? There's a line when it was being described to me that captured my attention. But in your own words, what's Tambo and Bones all about?
Yes. Tambo Bones is a wild ass ride that is about two characters who realize that they are trapped inside of a minstrel show, and they have to make a plot to get out, get money, and get whatever comes next. It's a ride that starts in one place by the whole hip hop rap concert in the middle of the show, and then there's a time jump and we go into a kind of unpredictable future. And I think it's a very wild ride that is about sort of the relationship between art, race, and capitalism.
The line that caught my attention was the fact that the play interrogates and satiricizes the commodification and commercialization of Black pain. But that was a loaded sentiment to express about any production. But at the same time, the irony is, I guess it's about us. So therefore, commodification and commercialization is what this is. So how does the authenticity and quintessential message come through without being an abuse of the exact thing it's purporting to interrogate?
Yeah, well, so I started writing this play. I come from a big poetry background. And I was doing a lot of sort of spoken word tours around the US. And I was finding that I was going up in front of audiences that were largely white and performing some kind of poem about police brutality, about racism, and the white audience would cry, and I would cry, and at the end of it, and they would pay me for that. And at a certain point, it started to feel like its own form of minstrelsy that was just being replicated over and over again. And at a certain point, it was like, oh, I'm being paid. These audiences are paying me to regurgitate some idea of pain that they want to see. And that's becoming its own mode of profit. And what I was finding was that I grew up very poor, and suddenly that was a pathway towards upwards mobility, was sharing these stories. So in writing the play, the starting place was, okay, how do we interrogate the relationship between capitalism and these stories? And how do we interrogate what it is to in some essence, be selling stories of Black pain to white audiences? I think particularly in theater, where audiences can often be very white, or audiences can often not be from the demographics that the play is being written about, that becomes its own power dynamic. So the play is about these two characters who are reckoning with that power dynamic, and then trying to figure out, okay, how do we escape this? How do we build a future where we can tell the stories that we want to tell without any inherent imbalance between audience and actor?
Who else is involved in this production, Dave? Because I know that there's a bona fide hip hop concert, which you mentioned, but it's composed by somebody in particular, right? So speak on that.
Yeah, it's composed by, so our director is Matthew Zia, who he and I have been talking about this play for almost half a decade now. And he read the play when it first won the Bruntwood commendation. And we've been sort of like talking about that in hip hop, and he's been like, oh, I can't wait to make music for this. So he's going to be directing the play and also making the music for the concert. And it's really just kind of a perfect blend of theatricality and musicality all in one package.
He's obviously got a history of examining America's past, present, and future, and the intersection of racism and capitalism. How did that help you in respect of putting this together?
Yeah, I think it's incredible to have a director who is so enmeshed in the history of hip hop. It's rare to see hip hop or rap on a theater stage, even rarer to see a full concert executed on stage with original music, original rap, and with two actors who can both pull off all of the dramatic sections and also all of the musicality of it. Like the play is very athletic and asks a lot of its team. And Matthew has kind of been the perfect collaborator for all of that because it comes from all of these worlds.
Do you worry that how was it received in America? And do you worry that it might be, it's quite loaded, right? In terms of the messaging. So do you worry that might go over some people's heads, or is it typical in art in that way that, whatever the message people take from it is what they were supposed to take?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, everything I'm writing is I'm trying to find the most fun way to explore something scarier, to explore something that has some kind of existential pulse. And so for most of this play, I think with audiences, you're on this crazy chaotic ride where you don't know what's going to happen next. And it's not until you really reach the end where you start to reckon with everything that you've seen. So I think for in the construction of this play, it's like, oh, this play is going to be fun as hell to watch. And then you get to the end and it's like, oh, we've gone through a lot to get here. This play is an examination of Black history. This play is an examination of capitalism. This play is an examination of what it is to create and sell stories to an audience. That's like kind of at the core of theater to begin with. So that, I think, is what we're doing, is that we're sculpting this kind of time traveling ride of a show.
Dave, you're from West Philly, right? To speak about, a little bit about your background, you've already mentioned that you were a poet. So, how does the different arts kind of mesh for you in your world? And what did you segue from and into? What was you like as a young man, and how did you find yourself there?
So I've been writing in one form or another my whole life. When I was in middle school, there was a group called Philadelphia Young Playwrights that my school made us write plays and submit to. And since then, I've sort of loved playwriting. I never thought it was going to be a career. I went into college thinking I was going to major in the sciences, and halfway through had a teacher kind of slap me upside the head and be like, "You're lying to yourself. You want to write, you're just afraid." And I think for me, it's always come from a place of in some ways, I come from a very secretive family, a family that oftentimes didn't have a lot of language to describe the things around them or why certain patterns were repeating. And so for me, the mission of writing became, how do I find language for things that I didn't have the language for growing up, or in language for things that I don't have the language for now. Like, it's all just a mission around like, oh, how can I put voice to something? And then once I have that, how can I examine it as far as I can take it? So for me, writing has always been an obsession with language. And then with, as it interacts with theater, it's always been an obsession with audience experience. So this play is about sort of how do I bridge kind of this fear and question around Black storytelling on stages, mixed with a desire to create a experience unlike anything you've ever seen on a stage. And that kind of came together into Tambo Bones for this specific play.
I often speak to American actors, playwrights who make a distinction between the difference in how audiences are in the UK and the US. Mm-hmm. What's the distinct differences that you've experienced? And does that play into how you deliver a play or production here as opposed to how it's delivered in the States?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different city by city, even. We did a version of this play in New York and a version of this play in Los Angeles, and those audiences were completely different. So in terms of how the audience will interact with it there, I have no idea. I mean, every audience is different, and also every show is different. This play has a lot of crowd participation. The first part of the show has lots of participation. The second part is a concert where we're asking people to get up, dance, sing along, whatever. And that plays in different crowds in different ways, in all sorts of ways. So I kind of have no expectation around what the audience is going to be like. I mostly am excited to see how far we can push this on the stage.
Listen, I know you're in between rehearsals, and I really appreciate your time. Is there anything else you want to leave us with in respect to Tambo Bones that you want audiences to know ahead of it, aside from buying tickets for themselves and their family, of course?
I'm just really excited. It's the play in for the UK production has a whole new team, whole new design, and the play is already so wild to begin with that I'm like that. I just can't wait to see it come to life.
Okay, appreciate you. Listen, good luck with everything moving forward, and I look forward to meeting you in the skin when you get here. I live not too far from where this is going to be running, so yeah, it's not going to be too difficult for me to get down and look support. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you. I'm excited for you to see it.